Thank you, Presiding Officer. When I saw Keith Brown's motion, I have to say I thought I could predict the debate, and thus far it has lived up to my expectations. It is a debate about the Constitution, in my view, rather than a focus on delivering for the people of Scotland. Now, Scottish Labour is a party of devolution. We campaigned for it. We introduced the legislation to make it a reality, and we used its powers to the max from day one. But 2 decades on, where I will agree with previous speakers, is that we need better government, but we also need stronger accountability in Scotland. And what I would say to the SNP colleagues in the chamber tonight, and indeed the Tories, is whether it's our NHS, access to mental health, two-tier dentistry, failures in educational attainment, the delays we saw with getting on and using the social security powers, setting up a Scottish energy company, and most recently the DRS. I don't think so, thank you. The people of Scotland are clear that they want both of Scotland's governments to work together. And that's what grown-up governments do in Europe, even when they have totally different politics. And I do want to comment on the section in the motion which I agree with and recognise that the Tories have put massive pressure on the devolution settlement, particularly following Brexit. And the work that the Constitution, Europe, External Affairs and Culture Committee carried out explained this tension and made a powerful case for change. And that's what we in Scottish Labour are focusing on, rebuilding our relations with our European neighbours. And the Erasmus replacement scheme would definitely be a start. On the GRA Section 35 order, I too expressed disappointment because that Section 35 was supposed to be an enabling mechanism, not a blocking mechanism. And that principle was agreed by all parties. It's interesting that in 1998, the Tories moved an amendment to the Scotland Bill requiring UK ministers to publish legal advice. However, the UK government has so far refused to publish their legal advice. That would make life a little bit more interesting, I think. Colette Stevenson mentioned the DRS, today's debate. For the internal market exemption for the DRS, the UK and the Scottish governments appeared to have been working together, quietly carrying out the work necessary under the Internal Market Act to secure an exemption. Single-use plastics were exempted. But even from the Scottish Government's publications, it's clear that months went by where the heavy lifting did not happen, and months were wasted. And that is now coming home to roost, not just for the SNP Green Government, but it's a massive pressure for businesses planning ahead and a huge disappointment for those of us who want a workable scheme. The Minister's statement today took absolutely no responsibility for the Scottish Government's action or lack of action in some cases. I have met with key stakeholders in the last few weeks who, despite repeated requests, have not been given the opportunity to meet with the Minister responsible for this scheme. So, we need to improve devolution and we need a better quality of government in Scotland. But we crucially need both the UK and Scottish governments to work together, even though they disagree with each other, for the better of Scotland, not just to grab headlines and have a fight with each other. No, thank you, I've got less than a minute to go. I do totally agree with some of the points in the motion about the cliff edge that the retained EU legislation bill would have created. So I'm proud of the work that our SEAC committee did to make the case for change. Labour strongly argued for a U-turn from the Tory government, which they eventually delivered, but it took a lot of campaigning from us, but also from cross-party lobbying and from businesses and from stakeholders. We delivered devolution, and we appear to be the only party that is still interested in transforming the settlement to make it work, because, as colleagues have said, we've been here for 2 decades and we need to transform the UK. And that is where I think I appreciated the opportunity of this debate, because we need to move power out the centre, strengthening democracy in both Westminster and Holyrood, and empowering our local authorities and communities. That's not been mentioned tonight, and that's core to devolution, not leaving our councils cash-strapped for over a decade without the resources to provide the basic services our constituents need. That's the transformative change people across Scotland need. And in summary, we need Scotland's government, whether they disagree or not, to cooperate where it matters in the interests of Scotland's people and businesses. And we need to elect a UK government to get on with that job with the constitutional transformation we need, but will not be delivered by the Tories, the SNP or the Greens. Thank you.